Mr. Chong, Siu Wai first. A historic high in 46 years. Is the income gap in Hong Kong really getting bigger and bigger?
I think that is true. The trend is that the poorest group of the Gini, first of all, the Gini coefficient index shows the poorest families, households, earns very little compared to the top 10% of the highest incomes. And the households which has the highest incomes usually have probably in 1 month, they would earn as much as 4 years of the income combined by the poorest groups. So that means the lowest income families usually do not have a very decent life as far as compared to the rest of the society. However, the Hong Kong government in the last several years and continually, they are doing the best to try to increase the government subsidies and to help alleviate the pain suffered by the lowest income households. And households with these problems usually are senior citizens, and sometimes the other half is the low income who have the wage earners have very little technology or job skills that cannot make a good living in this scientific and technological world in the 21st century. So despite of all the government's efforts, these are the structural problems. It cannot be solved quickly. So the government has spent so much money in subsidies, but did not solve the structural problems. So that is why we see the trend still continuing.
Mm-hmm. Professor Chong Leung, how do you see the difference between the two figures? One is pre-tax and pre-social welfare benefits, and the other one is post-tax and post-social benefits. Which one is telling the true picture, or are they together telling the real story?
Well, true. If you look at the highest number, 0.539, is the highest over the past 46 years. But I think the situation is over-exaggerated. If you look back the Gini coefficient trend over the past 46 years, it actually has been stabilizing since 2001. So over the past 15 years, our Gini coefficient is actually, does not change much. It increased at a very rapid pace since between 1976 to 1996, but since then it has been stabilized. So if you look at the number post-tax and post-social transfer, it reduced to 0.473, and actually compared to 5 years ago, it actually has reduced. So the government actually has done a good job in reducing the gap between the wealthy people and the poor people.
Mr. Zhang Siu Wai, now the world has a perception of Hong Kong being a wealthy shopper's paradise that has numerous people on the Forbes richest list. But does this perception reflect reality, and how do you view the mix of the very poor in Hong Kong with a wealthy exterior?
Well, I think we have to realize that...
Sorry, Mr. Zhang Siu Wai, please.
I'm sorry.
Okay. I think the situation is like this. If you see those people on the streets, you see the senior citizens pushing a cart with cardboard boxes and try to sell them for a meager wage or just get some money for their mouths. That is a very true picture. On the other hand, the government provided a lot of other subsidies to working people and working families who live far away from their workplace for transportation, and the students have allowances, and the senior citizens have allowances for medical treatment and so on. These are good things. However, if you see the overall picture, we could also see that in Hong Kong, we do not have a social safety net. That is the universal retirement pension, which is true that some of the countries in the world, even poor and societies, do not have the ability. Still, they try to provide this. In mainland China, people can get retirement pensions. And in the US, they have the social security money. But in Hong Kong, we do not have this. So there is a saying in Hong Kong, 少挺好挺, which means if you do not work today, probably you will not have food to eat. That is to say, some of the people who lost their ability to work, senior citizens in the 70s or 80s of their ages, usually do not have income, and these people should be provided by the government. So in this sense, I think this is true that the disparity of income did affect their life.
Professor Chong Tai-Leung, how do you view the phenomenon, the reality that Mr. Chong just painted? Has the SAR government been trying to address this problem in recent years, and if so, why has it not changed the fundamentals in what Mr. Chong was describing?
Well, we have to realize that the problem of income inequality or income disparity is not equal to the problem of poverty. We may have a society where everybody is very rich, but the Gini coefficient is still very high. So suppose you just grab the top 100 tycoon of China and put them into an island, Jack Ma, Ma Huateng, and also Wang Jianyin, put them into an island and measure the Gini coefficient. It may also be as high as 0.6 or 0.7. So we have to, understand the situation that Hong Kong is a very, diverse society. Some people are very rich and some people are very poor. But most important of all is that we should have a safety net for those who are very poor. So, but I think Hong Kong government has done a good job in providing this safety net by providing a lot of social security and also the public housing, medical service and education to the poor.
Mr. Zhang Siu Wai, it's not just about rich and poor. The index also shows disparity of income among the different genders. The median monthly income from main employment of working men was higher than that of working women by over 40% in 2016. Actually, I'm very surprised to hear that. What are the reasons for this difference?
I think gender inequality is all over the world, which is not a single phenomenon in Hong Kong. We could see in many surveys, even in the US, in the UK, we still find the same disparity of incomes between the two genders. However, in Hong Kong, we should realize in certain cases, we could see some of the working poor families, people like single mothers who work and do not usually have a higher income. These families are really at the bottom of the society. Some of them, we often see the media reports on migrants who come from mainland China. Sometimes they come to Hong Kong and marry a Hong Kong man, and then they settle with the family. And these people usually do not have the higher education. They lack the skill to earn a big salary, and sometimes they have to do some manual labor, and this could contribute to part of it. And also there is a tendency in a kind of male-dominant society that the men are promoted much faster, sometimes in private enterprises. However, if you see the government side is much brighter because we have very much almost equal. We have the first elected, the chief executive elect, who is going to be the first female chief executive, Carrie Lam, and we have many very capable and high wage earners in the financial services industry who are women, and also in the government services. So in certain sense, we could see the income disparity between the two genders. Sometimes we see in certain spots they are earning probably much closer. The disparity is not that huge.
Professor Chong Tai-Leung, what is your take on this issue? Is the big, apparently big income disparity between men and women an issue of concern for you?
Well, we cannot just look at one snapshot of the figure of 1 year. If you look at the trend, compare the number, the income inequality this last year, 2016 and 2011, we can see that within industry and within occupation, generally the income disparity actually improves. The inequality actually has narrowed down. And also, if you look at the from age perspective, for those who age between 25 and 44, the Gini coefficient actually declined from 2001. So we have to look at the trend of the income inequality instead of just one snapshot of the figure of last year.
Mr. Zhang Siu Wai, now 0.437 post-tax Gini index is still very considerable. What do you think the SAR government has to do in the immediate future, especially for the incoming SAR administration, to do to address this issue? I mean, this story made headlines both in Hong Kong and on the Chinese mainland, especially when we are going to the 20th anniversary celebration of Hong Kong's return to China's rule. What has to be done urgently in the near future by the new chief executive?
I think we should do two things. The incoming government should do two things. On one side is the long-term plan to review and restructure the systems and probably broaden the tax basis to provide more revenue into the supporting the poor families. In the same time, for the immediate goal, the government should try to work out some of the problems with the low-income families who have certain difficulties in raising their children, because some of the families who do not have enough money, the poor parents have to work very hard. They have less time to spend with their children, and that would sometimes negatively affect the children's growth. And in the future, these children may not be able to compete with other children, and that would affect their future. So that is something that the government should do. And education is still the goal. If you are well educated, have the job opportunities lie ahead, and then you will be confident that your future will be better and you can achieve your goal. Otherwise, some people will be disappointed and social problems will arise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chong Siu Wai from Hong Kong Baptist University and Professor Chong Leung from the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And as usual, here is my last point. Now there is a much quoted expression, lies, damned lies and statistics, attributed to both Mark Twain and Benjamin Disraeli. It means that you can use statistics to prove virtually anything by the actual numbers you choose to use. And I think it kind of applies here as well. If you just hear the headline figure, you'd think that the income gap in Hong Kong is really widening, but in essence it is a mixed story and there are a lot of nuances in that. So once again, the devil lies in the detail, and let's give credit where credit is due. The SAR government has managed fairly well to narrow the gap by taking care of the less fortunate. It's hoped such an effort can keep its momentum in the future.